views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, how are you? It's nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz on Bronx Net Television. And this evening, we've got a great show. We're going to go from the top of the political discourse and writing in New York State to a really interesting Bronx artist who is actually focusing on the MTA. So we'll get some images of our buses, subways, and streets and everything else. But right now, let's start off with my longtime friend. He is the editor-in-chief of City and State New York, Ralph Ortega. Nice to have you with us, Ralph.
Hey, Gary. Hi. How are you doing?
Great to see you again. You know, when I see you, it's almost like we just continue the conversation that we had the last time. But really, I was pleased and surprised to find that this week is the 15th anniversary of City and State New York. The anniversary edition, if it's not in your mailbox today, it will be in there tomorrow. It features a Bronx elected official, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Just talk to me about where this, I think it's an incredible magazine, is at right now, and why this really is a momentous thing, 15 years of covering the state of New York.
It is for us, and we hope so as well for our readers, Gary. When we set out to make this anniversary issue, we wanted to look back 5 years and see where we were as a city, as a state, ourselves as a publication. And we asked ourselves the question, who were the most powerful individuals each one of those years? And then we broke it down to who was probably the most powerful person, and that's how we decided on AOC.
The magazine, if anybody hasn't seen it, you go to cityandstatenewyork.com. I guess it's online. You can pick it up that way. The magazine has emerged over, I think, the last 5 years. As you know, I've been doing this for a lot longer than even 15, but it really has emerged as one of the most important publications in New York State. What is it that makes, I know what my opinion is, but what do you see as the reason that City and State has done so well, has been able to become what I think is the standard for political reporting in New York State?
Well, thank you very much, Gary. It starts off with a great team. We have a group of journalists who I think I've said this before on your program, that we sit around thinking about things that not everybody sits around thinking about in terms of politics. And we also come from the very local perspective. So, without local news in these last few years, with its diminish, City and State has certainly found a very proper niche to deliver insightful, policy-driven stories and analysis on a consistent basis daily, and also through our weekly magazine. So when you devote that kind of energy every single day, pretty much, with our newsletters, we have a deployment of 2 first-read newsletters in the morning and in the evening. We have our Albany Agenda newsletter, which really capsulizes the biggest stories in Albany from our perspective. Again, you're going to find content at City and State that isn't on everybody's radar screen. Our competitors certainly give us good reason to want to stay on those, but we like to pride ourselves in thinking of a lot of things before everybody else does.
Let's just get to the evaluation of AOC as maybe the most influential figure over the last 15 years, and the whole notion of progressive politics. I posed this similar sort of question to 3 of the new Bronx Assembly members who are all people of color and are going to be in the assembly, or actually right now are in the assembly for the first time, all progressive leaning, all left leaning. And I said, does AOC get the credit? And one of them told me, Amanda Septimo told me, which I thought was fascinating, there has been a groundswell of this activity, and she just ended up embodying it. So while she gives AOC the credit, it really was the culmination, certainly in the Bronx, of grassroots work that led to that. Do you want to just comment on this notion of power, which you have examined probably every week, and why she has become the embodiment of all of that grassroots work?
Well, it's a hard choice to pin who exactly is the most powerful person, right? We went over this. I mean, you could argue so many other people. I mean, Letitia James, of course. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez comes in not as exactly the most consequential politician at the moment. I mean, she's just getting started. And I think that's what most people we speak to tell us to keep in perspective, and not to mistaken her for all the things she's been able to accomplish, but to really to look at the big picture, to see what she's actually inspired and she's been a catalyst for, because she was outspoken. She's always outspoken, whether it's her cause or not. I mean, Amazon is a great example. You know, she came in, and because of her outspokenness, she captured an election. I mean,
Right.
Joe Crowley.
That was a landmark moment.
Yeah.
And then you look, of course, at Jamal Bowman, who defeated Elliot Engel in the next go round. That shows that there was some influence. My thought is that she's uncompromising, and that there are many, and you know very well, there are many legislators in Albany, and I can think of some, I don't want to name them, who have done progressive sorts of things. They've advocated for housing, they've advocated for all kinds of benefits, for immigration reform, and all these kinds of things. But they compromised, and they said, that's okay, but I know in order to get it done, she has said, this is what we want to do. And I think that's helped her to embody what you guys defined as, maybe the most influential person, because she's influenced maybe a whole generation. On that note, we're going to have women. Half of the women who are coming into the city council from the Bronx, prospectively, we know that there's still a November election to go, but it certainly is going to turn out that way, are women, and the city council is going to be, largely female by majority, as a matter of fact. How do you see that playing? Do you see it's going to play for what kinds of issues are we now all of a sudden going to have a different look at because there are women? And you should know, I asked Vanessa Gibson the same question last week.
Well, I like to look at what has happened with culminating with the resignation of Cuomo, because he himself set out to right the wrongs of sexual harassment, and and part of that process meant that he had to step down too. I didn't think he saw that coming.
Yeah, and he was brought down by women. Let's be clear about it.
Right.
I mean, that's really what happened.
If you really wanted to accomplish that mission, Andrew Cuomo was going to have to face the music on his, bully style and the accusations that were being lobbied at him. So he is a victim of his own doing in some ways. Now we end up with a woman governor, Kathy Hochul, and she's already indicated that she's going to be choosing someone that will become another, be another historic person in government, most likely a person of color from the city. A lot of people speculating on how that will turn out. And I think what you will see with so many women on the city council is an incredibly new, refreshing era of the anti-male attitude. The feeling of, oh, I'm a good guy. I want all these good things for women.
But then they still don't compromise when the lines are drawn.
Well, I mean, I think it's clear now that what you do in your private life, what you do in political life has to be reflected in your private life.
Yep.
And even in your professional life. I mean, because here, we've got people being knocked out of office because they're not living, they're not abiding what they're, with what they're asking for.
Yeah, with real values. Before we run out of time, you interviewed, I thought it was fascinating, you interviewed Freddie Ferrer. You were trying to define the notion of power. And this is all, by the way, in the 15th anniversary edition of City and State, which you can find now. Just take a minute. When I mentioned it before the show, you said, oh, it was a great interview. What was great about it? And what survives with Freddie Ferrer, even though he's no longer in office as a borough president, did not succeed to become the mayor, etc. Yeah,
Freddie is someone who's incredibly approachable and very candid, and I've known him since the late '90s, and so it was easy to reconnect with him. We reconnected on an obituary. Actually, I called him up to ask about someone that had passed away, and then for this anniversary issue, I thought about him, and I said, it'd be kind of interesting to talk to Freddie Ferrer about power, considering he's been watching it. He's someone who City Hall wasn't in the cards for him.
Well, he got unlucky because of 9/11. I mean, we know that. We only got about 30 seconds. Give me the one thing that he said that made you say, this was good. This was worth doing.
He talked about how it's all about public service, not power. And, I think if more politicians kept that in focus, they might be able to rein in those distractions.
That is excellent analysis. Of course, we know Freddie Ferrer on BronxNet Television. He helped to create BronxNet Television, and I thought the interview was like, oh yeah, Fred Ferrer. I remember that guy, and it came through just beautiful. I thought you did a great job with it. Anyway, Ralph Ortega, you and all Zach and Jeff and Rebecca Lewis and all the people that we have on the Bronx Buzz from City and State New York. Congratulations. 15 is just the start. I don't know. We'll all have a lot less and grayer hair when we get to another 15. But we expect that that's going to happen in 15 years. Thank you so much for joining us in the Bronx.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Bronx Buzz.
Always great to have Ralph Ortega, editor-in-chief of City and State New York. Make sure you pick it up, get online. You can register for a subscription. It's just a fabulous publication. But right now we're going to change gears. We're going to talk to an artist who depicts the MTA. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Marco Tran.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We're going to change gears and we're going to talk to a Bronx guy who's an artist. And I just found out he actually lives in my neighborhood, really a stone's throw from my window right now. But all that aside, say hello to Charlie ELO, a multimedia artist from the Bronx. Nice to have you with us, Charlie.
Pleasure to be here, Gary.
Tell me a little bit about your artwork, when you got started, what inspires you, what kind of work you like to do in general. And then we'll show, I was talking about earlier that we're going to show some mass transit work, but let's just talk in general about where you've been.
Okay, I was raised in the Bronx, educated mostly in the Bronx. I went to LaGuardia High School down in Manhattan. I've always had a passion for artwork. I just recently graduated from Lehman College in a Bachelor of Fine Arts in studio art. So I've been painting professionally for about 7 years now, painting at live art events and then commissions and murals and things like that. I'm multidisciplined, photography, little film, the videography, graphic art, and yeah. So
so let me ask you, what motivates you? I'm always interested in an artist's muse. What motivates you to do all that work? And then what made you say, well, painting's not enough or photography is not enough. I want to do all different kinds of things. Talk to me about what's inside you that drives that.
Well, to be honest, it's probably an insatiable and inexplicable feeling that an artist, I mean, I can speak for myself, that an artist like myself I just have to, I don't know, express myself. I like to consider myself somewhat of a storyteller, and art is the telling of our times or whatever time that it was created. Even back in the day before we had photography, we look back to those images to know what was going on during those times. So documenting, I guess, our current situation or my life as I walk through it, a form of expression. And the reason that I'm a multidisciplinary is because sometimes, I'm not in the mood to paint, or perhaps I might not be in the position to paint. So, we jump off to something else like photography or creative writing, or videography is something that I've actually spent a lot of time doing.
Especially nowadays when the opportunities in videography, I mean, you can have your cell phone and all this. I mean, you could be on TV, you could make a video of literally anything nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I guess a sort of a different medium for a different time or a different form of expression. And also,
well, and aside from the fact that we are down the block from each other, there is this that I have this feeling of, there are stories out here, especially in the Bronx, that nobody's telling. It's like still been here for 100 years, undiscovered territory. And it's for me, doing what I do, it drives me every day. A guy like Charlie ELO has people got to know who he is.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I actually I was able to have the blessing of exhibiting in the Longwood Art Gallery in Hostos College last year during the pandemic. They did a virtual exhibit, and one of the paintings that they showed was actually on the cover of a Bronx magazine called Bronx Narratives. So I just wanted to kind of shout that out. There's somebody else who's telling those stories and pushing art culture.
We know the people from Bronx Narratives very, very well, and they do great work. There's a lot of us in the Bronx that are motivated, certainly in that way. I'm just curious. One question, then we're going to show some of your stuff. Do you make a living and able to pay your bills through artwork, or do you have to have a so-called straight job? Because it's always an interesting questions for artists and how they survive, because sometimes it's inconceivable to me, and I have so much respect for people who do, but just tell me about that.
Well, it depends on what time of year, I suppose. Summertime is always good for murals and outside work. I, as of right now, have to take a part-time job.
Right.
To make ends meet.
We got to pay our rent, and these are tough times, for
right,
sure.
But I'm still making a living off art. I'm still able to pay my bills on partly on my art salary.
Right.
I'm just recipient of a grant just recently. I'm curating an art show down in Manhattan in October. So things like that help you
keep you going. All right, let's take a look at the mass transit series.
Yeah.
The first picture that we have, which I just love, I love all of them. Now that I know that you're from my neighborhood, I feel like, is this the 238th Street station?
This this painting is based on a reference from I believe it was in Brooklyn. But what took me about the actual image was exactly what you just said. It's so reminiscent of those train stations that I grew up standing on. So I really
tell me about the painting of it. Is it large? Is it a small? I mean, what's it about?
That particular painting, I believe, is 18 by 24. So not that large.
Did you do it on location, or did you like take a photograph and then do it or from memory and do it that way?
No, that actually it was a photograph that I saw online from one of my friends, a friend of mine's photograph, and I got her permission and I went ahead and
great. I love that because it's so iconic for the borough of the Bronx. Let's see what the next one looks like. Now this, there's a lot of things I like about it. Number one, it's modern people, but the train looks like it used to look like when when we used to ride the D train many years ago.
Oh yeah. Well, this piece is actually a tribute to my art collective, Art Culture NYC. I'm a part of an art collective of artists based out of New York City of all Latin American descent, and all the people in that picture are in the collective, and that's supposed to be a self-portrait of me over in the corner sleeping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Does that give you do the portraits like that of Bronx people, even doing something of yourself, give you the most pleasure, or all of it gives you the most pleasure? Like whatever. It's like a musician. The latest work is my favorite work.
Well, Again, it depends on what day you ask me, because I particularly like painting the mass transit series because of originally because of the interlacing of culture, right, in the subway system, and how we're from all walks of life and all boroughs and places, and we're just trying to get to work, we're trying to get to where we're going, and we're all together forced to just interact
in a very small space.
In a very small space, and on a daily basis, on a routine, and that was interesting to me. Beyond that, though, if you see, some of the paintings have figures, some of the paintings don't. I wanted to then explore perhaps the space that we occupying. So maybe not the people in it, but maybe the space that we were occupying.
Well, let's take a look. I want to make sure we get some more of these in there.
Yeah.
Speaking of space.
Yeah.
And the fact that you made it pink and red is interesting to me. The red trains are a later thing than they were years ago. This is what it looks like rush hour.
That's the picture that I was referring to, Bronx Narratives, and that I was able to exhibit at the Longwood Gallery. It's actually a favorite of the mass transit series. People seem to gravitate towards it. But yeah, that definitely is a perfect example of what I wanted to express. I look at that painting, when I look back at it, it almost looks like blood cells, going through like the veins, right? That are the tunnels that go through our city, which is the body of our city. And the red trains actually are meant to represent the Bronx, because as a youth, I used to hang out over on the east side. In the 90s, the red train was the 2 train. They used to take you up to 241st and up on those sides. So I put that red train to be specifically.
I want to show some more stuff. And let's take a look. Speaking of red, just tell us something about it. I mean, it's impressionistic, but you get the feeling of movement. That's for sure.
Movement, right? This is actually based on a curve. If you're coming down the 1 train. And you leave the Bronx, and one of the first train stations in Manhattan is the 207 station.
Right.
And it comes very close to that building. And I've always been fascinated with the fact that there's a moving train, just taking that corner. And so,
there it is.
There it is.
All right. Let's see the next one. Oh, now this is slightly different. I love this because it combines, of course, the mural, the background, and the street. Obviously, we recognize the streetscape with the gratings and all. Tell me about this.
This is a project that I did with the Women's Health Education Company out of the Bronx. Their organization doing great things in the Bronx, and that was meant to just promote anti-littering, and that was a very heavily graffitied fence before we got to it. The community participated, and we were able to beautify it a little bit. A lot of people in the neighborhood really appreciated it. I got a lot of responses online on
let's face it. Let's face it, when you do murals like that, it changes the neighborhood, changes people's look at the neighborhood, changes how they feel. Now, did you do that yourself, or did you have other people assist? Because sometimes people get other people to assist.
Well, I did it. You could say I did about 90% of it myself. There were people from the community helping out because it's supposed to be a community.
They always want to. I don't mean to rush you along, but I want to get how people can find you, how they can see more of your work. Certainly, if they want to commission you, we wouldn't argue with that. How do they get in touch with you? How do they find out more?
Okay. You can check out my website. It's Elevated Media at elevatedmedia.com, ELOVATED media.com, or on Instagram, ELO Burns, ELOBURNZ. Elo Burns with a Z at the end. Or you can Google it, and it'll take you right to my handles.
Or you can just take a walk down the block and have a slice with me and Charlie.
Let's
and
go.
we'll do it the Bronx way.
Right?
Listen, Charlie ELO, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your great work. We appreciate your vision of our beautiful borough of the Bronx. And that's going to do it for the Bronx Buzz. Thanks to the editor-in-chief of City and State New York. And that is, of course, Ralph Ortega. Thanks to Charlie ELO. Thanks to you. And guess what? We'll see you next week.